today's topic, I feel like, is one that I have struggled for literal years to put into words, to understand, even to know what the hell I'm thinking or saying or feeling. And I think that I've sort of like skirted the edges of this or these thoughts in multiple other moments and discussions and even ASMR videos in the past. I think one of the most direct influences, I guess, or one of the moments where I maybe got closest to understanding or explaining this started with the video I made, may have been even 2 years ago now, the one about ASMR discussion for people who feel kind of directionless, hopeless, depressed, have nothing to believe in, kind of thing. And I still don't feel, though, like I really hit the point yet. I was still kind of figuring it out. So now, though, I feel like I'm at a place where I have the perspective and vantage point to have it dawn on me like, oh, this is what I've been searching for. These are the words and the feelings that I wanted to express. So hopefully today's video will do that and be useful to someone. I do hope that this video in particular reaches more people than my talking videos usually do whenever this is published publicly in like a year or whatever, because I feel like this is actually really important. I always feel like these things are important, but this is one of those like things where I feel like my life would have changed for the better had I known sooner, kind of thing. And at the same time, I feel like it's only because I've had all of the experiences and failures and rejections and successes and lessons that I've had up until this point that I am here. But I do think that planting that little seed of thought is the first step for anyone. And it would be a useful thing for people to have rolling around in the back of their head if they feel similarly to the way that I do and have. Okay, so at this point, currently in my life, I am the most optimistic, proud, happy, excited, just positive that I think I've ever been. Certainly as an adult. And I think the only thing that comes even close to the sort of natural euphoria that I have now would be just like that childhood bliss. However, this seems better for a couple of reasons. Number one, I understand how I feel, and I feel more in control of myself, and my own input into my situation. And as a child, I obviously couldn't have understood the complexities that I know now, and I also had no power whatsoever, and not even the thought to understand that I had autonomy and choice. And I was fighting for those things, but I didn't think that they were truly attainable, because obviously I was just a kid, and the adults in my life were the authority, and I didn't have a choice. I also didn't understand all of the layers of the shitty stuff that I was feeling and dealing with as a kid, and it was unhealthy, obviously, for my mental health to be dealing with those things, with the minimal amount of resources and understanding that a child has to work with. So there was a lot of escapism and personal, mental drama almost, in a sense of struggling. I felt like it was me against the world, and not really in that teenage angst type of way, although that did come later. I kind of more mean I really felt sincerely alone, like not a friend I made or a person I spoke with understood or felt the same way that I did, and no one validated my feelings or my experience, and that was, supremely detrimental to my development. And it influenced my ability to connect with others, to trust others, to believe in myself. Just all of the basic sort of healthy building blocks that you want your child to, or any child, to have instilled in them from a young age, so that they become a good and, reasonably happy member of society and grow into adulthood in a way that suits them. I wish that I could just make you feel how I feel right now. My outlook is like the brightest it's ever been. I finally, as I mentioned, I think in a previous little video, I finally feel like I can be the person who I always imagined myself being as an adult. But there were a lot of other ways that I imagined myself along the way, and most of them were not good. I always thought that I was certainly going to die young. I always thought that I was going to wind up taking my own life, and that I was never gonna amount to anything, that there were just too many things wrong with me in too many things that I didn't understand, and just far too many hurdles for me to ever be any better than I was in that moment. And after years and years of feeling that way, it makes sense that when you start to try to change that, intentionally, or even if something unintentional starts to change that, there's that element of disbelief or self-sabotage or resistance, a need for control, a need to maintain the feelings and the bubble that you've developed as your survival. It makes sense, if that's what you are used to. And it's taken you a lot of effort to survive to that point, then obviously you're going to fight to maintain that, even if it's not the best version of yourself or the best potential outcome for your life. You're not going to want to deviate because you know how difficult it was just to make it to that point. And I guess so the sort of peak of what I'm trying to discuss here is the idea that when the time comes, an opportunity is there, or change is there, or you're in the position to do something different. Most people don't. A lot of people settle or just stay where they are out of fear. And I think, of course, that's sad. Not in like a, oh, I pity them type way, but it's just sad that so many of us have built this protective bubble that we are not at all comfortable even thinking about leaving. And when we do, we immediately try to grab on to everything that we know, because God forbid even one thing changes. Even if we're not super happy, it's like, okay, but I know this works at a level I can tolerate. So one of the most important things, I think, to making that hurdle and getting to the point where you can risk looking around the corner and seeing what is beyond what you know, is this. The solutions, the help, the changes are never going to seem as complicated as the problems. Despite being in therapy for the longest time and being open-minded to it, and sometimes being so, this doesn't sound very mature, but it wasn't. Sometimes I was just so tired of being myself or taking taking care of myself or trying to be strong, that I wanted to be taken care of. I wanted to be sick. I wanted for someone to tell me, here's what's wrong with you, and here's how you can fix it. It's going to be this drug. It's going to be this rigorous program. It's going to be this, you're going to have to struggle to get out of where you're at. And I've always just believed that. I always thought naturally, like, there's no way that there's like a simple solution to all of this. And obviously, in a sense, there's not. It is difficult if you're planning on leaving your spouse or cutting off your parents or changing your job or moving or, whatever. There are difficult decisions along the way, and I'm not saying that that part will be easy, but these steps that you take to heal yourself, to change your perspective, to really make those forward leaps and bounds, they're surprisingly simple. And I often wouldn't allow things in therapy or things that I even just learned by chance to sink in for me that way, because I thought, well, this can't possibly be enough help. I need more help than this. I am not going to get better simply by writing on a piece of paper the pros and cons to a decision. Or one of the big ones that I've done most recently with my current therapist has been like, when there's something, I have a thought about myself, like try to think of like an example, I don't know. It's like I'll have a doubt about something that I am gonna do or something that I feel or whatever, and I have to come up with why, like the evidence for and against that thing being true. So if I'm sitting here thinking, okay, I know for a fact that Barbara at work hates me. Okay, take out a piece of paper, write down Barbara at work hates me. What's the evidence for that? What is your reasoning that you believe truly that Barbara hates you? And then what is your evidence against that? Well, Barbara does say good morning to me every day. Barbara does treat me pretty similarly to the way she treats everyone else. Once you are listing out these things, it's very easy to see, like, oh, this is just me catastrophizing or magnifying or, blowing something out of proportion, projecting, doing something to put my own views or thoughts into the situation where they don't belong or they're not warranted, or it's just a reflex. However, for the amount of times that I did that, it was actually pretty embarrassing how many times my therapist had to remind me to try that again. Like, why don't you do that exercise with this? And I would be like, no, it's more complicated than that. I just really believed in my head there's no way that a simple list is going to help me. I'm beyond that. There's more than that. It's too simple. It's just not, it doesn't equal the pain and the stress and the heartache that I've been through to just write some shit down on a piece of paper. Journaling my feelings or thoughts is lame in comparison to the absolute horrors in my heart that I've felt or been through or seen. And that might sound, and to me does sound, like somewhat immature, but also I still understand that. I feel like it makes sense when you go through all of this shit in your life and you're just worn down from it. You don't imagine that the solutions or the things that will help you could possibly be simple in any way. You really think, I'm so fucked up, or I have so much wrong with me. I'm so unsavable. I'm so different. I'm so inexperienced or unsocialized, or whatever the thing is. Like, I'm over here and other people are way over there. And when you grow up thinking that the whole time, or you suddenly, maybe you didn't grow up like that, maybe you had something happen in high school or college or years later where you're like feeling very alienated, or you've, just suffered with something, a divorce, losing your best friend, having to deal with parent issues or friend issues or near-death experience or agoraphobia, or not having a history of friendships, or feeling just alienated in some way from what you believe the norm is, or just from what you wish you were. It makes sense that you feel like I need a lot of help because I'm hurting a lot. And it's not just your average hurt. Therapy's not going to help me. I need more than that, and some people turn to like their religion and prayer and things like that, and I think that's kind of where I was in that first video I was describing earlier. I was really looking deep into Buddhism for the first time because I really wanted something to believe in, and I felt strongly that nothing I have experienced or found or learned about like works for me. It's not strong enough to help me, or it doesn't match up enough with my experiences. And learning about Buddhism was a little different because even in the like origin stories of this spirituality, or however you want to describe it, the founder, if you want to say it that way, did suffer deeply, intentionally, and he felt as bad as possible, even to places that I've surely never been. I've never been to a place where I'm eating 1 grain of rice a day. I've never been that restricting of myself. I've kind of just more dealt with things that were coming at me rather than well, that's not true. I've punished myself, but not like that. I would kind of mentally torture myself. I'm way too comforted by food and showers and like the warmth, the little luxuries that I have, ASMR being one of them. I can't take those things away from myself because I feel like, or I felt like, they were all I had. And now I kind of see them more as the things that I just enjoy a lot. But I can't relate to that idea of like, I'm gonna starve myself or something. Like, no, you're gonna have to pry this bread out of my cold dead hands because I'm not giving it up. So that being said, it was kind of like impressive in a way, like, man, this person really, really gets it. They've felt terrible lows just like me. And I still find a lot of merit in the thoughts and beliefs of Buddhism and honestly in a lot of religions. Am I still atheist? Yes, but Christianity, Judaism, all of the religions, I feel like have a reason that they've been successful, and I do believe that there's a lot of wisdom in every single one. There are human experiences. There is knowledge and comfort and very wise thoughts. I mean, just reading through so many different texts, you can find these statements that just seem so profound and helpful and virtuous and all of these great things. So I'm not saying that religion is useless or, my stance has always been and will always be, do what makes you happy. I personally don't subscribe to a religion, but I have my own feelings, and I still respect a lot about many different religions and their philosophies and whatnot. So anyhow, I am still atheist, but I do think that there is good in all of these things. But I really at the time was looking for like my ace in the hole. I'm like, what is going to save me and change me and help me, and how am I going to make it out of this darkness and this scarring that I guess has just grown over time. I just felt stuck in old wounds and almost cursed or damned. I've had a lot of very superstitious thoughts throughout my life, and I think that's just a part of me trying to rationalize why bad things happen to me, but also trying to avoid more bad stuff from happening to me, if that makes sense. It gave me some feeling of control. and it seems complicated. So that gave it some like validity to me. And that kind of just folds into what I'm trying to overall say, is that it's very easy to doubt things that seem too simple when you feel like you've been through very complicated situations and emotions. And I get it. It's logical to be that way, but it's not necessary, because there really are simple things that can be done to help. It's us. We kind of complicate things more than they need to be. And to kind of further this thought, think about like the amount of times that we have complicated something on a much more micro scale. In the past, with the easiest one for me to think about is just like people I've dated and getting into like an argument with them, because I didn't often fight with people I was friends with. I think that I've always been too fearful of losing those relationships, so I'm a lot more like go with the flow. And those people aren't in my life as much, as like frequently and in your face, and you can make decisions and not tell every friend that you have. But when you have someone that you're dating, it just feels a lot more like you have a responsibility to them, to tell them like every little thing, because that's how we treat it. But that's not even true. But anyway, overcomplicating things. You can have a whole fight about something and then realize like a month later that it didn't matter at all. There was no reason why that mistake that the person made, or not running the yellow light, or I'm making these things up, or wearing a certain pair of pants, or comment that they made that you took the wrong way. Like, we make those things so much more complicated than they are. We never take people, or we usually don't take people at their kind of like face value when they say to us, I didn't mean that, or you misunderstand me, or like I'm sorry. Even when you have these past traumas and this mentality of like suffering and exclusion and isolation, there are so many nuances that are hard to know ahead of time if you haven't done a lot of searching and made a lot of effort to understand what you've been through and how it has affected your perspective. That's the hard part. That's the only hard part, is dedicating the time to transcribing those patterns, whether they're from your guardian or your brother, sister, like whatever dynamic. Even if it was just a major event, you lived through something horrific. It doesn't have to be like decades worth of abuse or pain. It could be something that was much more acute in its duration and onset that still really affected you. And the simplest way, I think, to think about that is the concept of like baggage. I feel like the first time I ever heard about like emotional baggage, someone using that term, I was probably in 8th or 9th grade, and someone would say like, well, my previous boyfriend or girlfriend, they cheated on me or they lied to me, so I have baggage, or this person has been treating me like they treated their ex, and like that's just baggage that they're bringing into the relationship. And we all understand that because it's something that we're capable of understanding and talking about that on a basic level. By the time we are in our early teens, we can conceptualize and understand enough. Like, you're only treating me that way because you're mad at so and so, or because you went through this experience and it changed how you see things. We get that, but I think we simplify that more than it needs to be, and we complicate the solutions more than they need to be. And it really should kind of be flipped around. Seek endlessly the complications in your perspective, mentality, relationships, outlook, everything that's a part of you, based on the things that went wrong for you, things that haunt you, the things that have shaped you into not the person who you thought you would be or who you want to be. Those things are complicated. Those things run 87 layers deep and you don't even realize it. But then when you do, you're like, holy shit, this is everywhere. Could this really be everywhere? Is that really, am I being dramatic now? Like, is this true? Has this really permeated so much of my life? Is this really the answer over and over again? Usually, yeah. Usually, yes. But the answers, the help, I want to say, not answers, can be simple. You can think about the idea of meditation, of exercise, of mindfulness, of yoga, of excelling at your job. A lot of the times we do pick something kind of mundane and accomplishable, if that's a word. Maybe not the best word, but you get what I mean. To turn to when everything else feels so hard and stressful. And it's just as simple. There's no reason to doubt the little exercises that they give you in therapy. When I was doing my wellness streams, I mentioned about a bajillion little things that you could do or think about, exercises, and they just seem like not helpful for some people. You have to get over that and give it a try. I get that it seems simple. I get that you don't think it's going to help you. I've had people even say to me before while I was doing those streams, like, I wish I could do that, but I just can't. Or I wish that would help me, but it just won't. And like, I've been there. I get that. But you're wrong. I was wrong. A lot of us are wrong. And if you really do want to move into this place where you can be happy, if you really do want to see what that feels like, if you really do want to make the most of your life while you have the opportunity and not just be stuck, if you can give up being addicted to your bubble and control and maintaining a shitty homeostasis just for the fact that you're used to it, these little things will help. You just have to do them repeatedly and be patient. If it feels stupid to make your pro and con list, if it feels stupid to write out your feelings, fine, do it anyway. Because in the long run, you'll be amazed at how much you learn, how much it helps heal you, how much you just recognize from these teeny tiny little exercises. So I guess that's kind of what I wanted to share. Don't overcomplicate your recovery. Don't imagine that just because you've been through a lot, the way that you get better, the way that you move forward is going to be equally difficult. Why would you want it to be? Like, haven't you been through enough already? Why make it harder than it needs to be? If it can be simple, just let it be simple. Try the little stupid fucking things and do them over and over for months, and see what happens. I can't force you to, but I definitely encourage it because it feels really, really, really good on the other side when you are like, oh shit, that really did help. Man, I was making that way harder than it needed to be. And you know what? It actually feels really good to be not caught in that spider web of just bad shit, toxicity and pain and just hard feelings and bad memories, and it just brings so much off your shoulders and makes you feel like, okay, what's next? I'm ready. Let's do this. Like, there's so much I've wanted to do, and now I can do it. And that's what I hope anyone else out there who's going through or been through or starting the journey forward can take with them from this. So let me know if you have any thoughts. I only really realized at the end of my talking that someone has been doing yard work in the neighborhood somewhere. So I hope that that isn't too loud when I go to edit. But I apologize if it was. Hopefully it'll be just a nice little background hum. We'll see. And yeah, don't make things too difficult. You're not a lost cause, and you're not dramatic for thinking that. It makes sense that you think that, but it's really not that difficult. So I'll see you